This is what the Lord says. Maintain justice and do what is right. For my salvation is close at hand, and my righteousness will soon be revealed. Blessed is the one who does this, the person who holds it fast, who keeps the Sabbath without desecrating it, and keeps their hands from doing any evil. Let no foreigner from this who is bound to the Lord say, the Lord will surely exclude me from his people. Let no eunuch complain, I am only a dry tree, for this is what the Lord says.
To the eunuchs who keep my Sabbath and choose what pleases me, and hold fast to my covenant, to them I will give within my temple and its walls a memorial and a name, better than sons and daughters. I will give them an everlasting name that will endure forever. And foreigners who bind themselves to the Lord and minister to him, to love the name of the Lord and be his servants, all who keep the Sabbath without desecrating and hold fast to my covenant. These I will bring to my holy mountain. I will give them joy in my house of prayer. Their burnt offerings and sacrifices will be accepted on my altar, for my house will be called a house of prayer for all nations. The sovereign Lord declares, he who gathers the exiles of Israel, I will gather still others to them, besides those already gathered.
Today's gospel is from Matthew 25, verses 34 through 46. Hi, I'm Louise Specht, and Tim and I are visiting our grandkids in North Carolina. Their names are Emma and Jimmy, and they have made this video for you, acting out today's gospel. You might think that the king, played by Emma, is kind of harsh, sending the unrighteous, played by Jimmy, who also plays the righteous, into the eternal fire. Ouch! I wonder what Jesus wanted us to understand from this story. What does loving Jesus have to do with loving other people? Can you love Jesus and not find something of him in others? Our story begins with the king calling the righteous to be judged. The king will say to those on his right,
Come, you who are blessed by my Father, and take your inheritance that the kingdom has prepared for you since the beginning of creation. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. I needed clothes, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you looked after me. I was in prison, and you came to visit me.
Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? When did we see you a stranger and invite you in, or needing clothes and clothe you? When did we see you sick or in prison and visit you?
Whenever you did one of these things for the least of my brothers and sisters for the least of the brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me.
The king will say to those on his left,
Depart from me, you who are cursed, into the eternal fires prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungry, and you gave me nothing to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me nothing to drink. I was a stranger, and you did not invite me in. I needed clothes, and you did not clothe me. I was sick, and you did not come to visit me. I was in prison, and you did not come to visit me.
Lord, when did we see you hungry or thirsty or a stranger and needing clothes or sick in prison and did not help you?
Truly I tell you, whenever you did not do one of the least of these, you did not do for me.
All right.
Hi.
Hi, Cara. I'm so glad that you're here.
I'm really happy to be here. I'm happy to be one of the 5, the chosen, that we volunteered for this.
One of the 5 who agreed to my plan.
It's like, I'll help you out.
Yes, I so appreciate it.
Okay.
And we're in this series, as you all know at home,
This is week 5 of our 5-week series on becoming, who we're becoming as a church, where we're headed, and the vision of some of our leaders. So maybe you'd like to share a little bit about what topic came to mind for you around that.
Well, as the first African American moderator, I really thought about what I enjoyed about the church, the welcoming feeling of it, and with what I've been calling the racial terrorism of the past 2020 and the 400 years prior to that, but really in 2020, I really wanted to bring forth, as a predominantly white church, racial issues.
Yeah.
And talk about where we've been, how we can be more, and where we hope to be in the future.
Yeah.
And reckoning racial equality and humanity of all people who are other than predominantly white people in power.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a tricky question for us as a church that is, it's majority white, but it's not entirely white.
Right.
And it's a church that wants very badly to be doing the right thing and to be showing up in situations where people are being oppressed and doing something to help. And it's hard to figure out exactly how to do that and to keep up the momentum.
Yes. It's exhausting in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and I feel a little bit like I feel it in myself when I say it's hard, because of course it's not as hard for me as a white person as it is for everybody who's living under the weight of that racial terrorism every day.
Yeah, I think about a lot, coming forefront to mind, just the amount of energy I feel like I'm putting armor on when I'm getting ready to go out. And I'm trying to remember when I first felt that. Elementary school, I predominantly was raised in Minnesota in white schools and white communities, in foster care, which had its ups and downs, but most of my life I was in a white community and socialized white. I was the first African American girl to graduate from my high school, and this was in '87.
Wow.
So there wasn't a lot of racial diversity for me, but I do remember going into new spaces with my friends and really having a lot of fun and not thinking anything until someone other than us, not in our group, would say the N-word to me and my friends, and that would be shocking, and my friends were like, you don't say that. Like, I had the allies to, that's not okay, and whatever, but it wasn't something I experienced a lot of. And then I started going into more racially diverse areas, and for me that was a learning experience, because like I said, I grew up in a white community, so I was meeting Asians and Hispanics and Muslim people and Middle Eastern, which I'd never seen before. So that was educating for me, and learning different cultures and learning, different languages and picking up some prejudices, I believe, because of the other and the difference. And then I moved to the Bay Area, which was really, really diverse, and I've loved that aspect of my life, changing from Minnesota to the Bay Area and just having it be so racially diverse. And in the field that I work in, which is housing, it's mainly low-income people looking for affordable housing. So there's the other of economics and class, along with, elderly or people with different abilities. And mainly it's a lot of people of color, different races and ethnicities. So I've learned a lot in interacting with those cultures and have grown.
Yeah, it's hard to overstate how important that is, just the contact with people that are different than you. Like, you can have your heart in the right place. You can think that all people are equal and want everybody to be able to thrive. And if you never have contact with people that are different than you, later when you do, it's an adjustment. Even if your heart's totally in the right place. Getting to actually encounter people, it's a different kind of thing. It's necessary.
Yes.
That's one of the things I value about being around here too.
It's necessary.
You can't get around it, and that's a good thing.
Yeah.
We're all running into each other a lot.
Right. The world is so much wider than our next door community. the same grocery stores that we go to, and we only see the same others over
Yeah.
and over again. It's
Yeah.
so much wider, so much more beautiful.
Yeah.
And the harmony of the different sounds and scents and laughter and languages and interpreting different films and music and traditions around grieving or birth. It's just an amazing thing, that multiculturalism.
Totally. It enriches all of our lives. It enriches our community to have that diversity. And at the same time, I think sometimes around here and maybe in some other places too, we can get so excited. And by we, I probably mostly mean white people, although I might mean others too. We can get so excited about the idea of multiculturalism that we sort of paper over the fact that there are substantial differences in how people's lives go based on some of those characteristics. Because of embedded prejudice, because of systemic prejudice, systemic racism, systemic inequality in various other ways. And sometimes I think we can get, not just in church, but definitely in church, excited about like, oh, we're going to do a month for this, or we're going to do a month for that, and just do, make things look really beautiful and celebratory, and skip the step where we reckon with where things came from or how things are.
How they became oppressive.
Yeah.
How they have become and led to segregation and separation, or incarceration. Right.
Yeah.
The years and years of all of that.
Yeah.
For the 1 month for us, Black History Month or Hispanic History Month, or, like we're Black 365 days a year.
Right. And it's
Right?
not only a party.
Right. Definitely not.
Yeah, as much as we might wish that it was, it is not. And
Right.
papering over that and saying like, oh, I just celebrate how different everyone is. Sometimes, especially for those of us on the more privileged end of most of the spectrums, it can serve to actually silence people, I think, when you're like, oh, but I love how different everyone's cultures are. If I say that, sometimes I think it sort of shuts people down, where they're like, okay, but I was trying to tell you about how I can't get a job.
Right.
Or I was trying to tell you about how I have put in bids on a dozen houses and I never get it. And I think it's because people recognize that my name looks a certain way, or all that kind of stuff. Like,
Right.
people are trying to tell you, okay, sure, yeah, there's beautiful parts of my culture, but also I'm suffering.
Yeah. I'm suffering with doors being closed.
Yeah.
I'm suffering with being picked last.
Yeah.
I'm suffering by having a higher standard of, we need 3 IDs from you, but you need to give us 10.
Right.
Why? We're
Yeah.
both applying for the same thing. Well, we need to have more information.
We just need to make sure.
Yeah. Right.
We're legally allowed to ask for that from everyone, but we don't.
Right. So that otherness, in the way that separates and causes more hindrance. One of obviously the changing of voting laws,
Yes.
specifically
Oh my
to
gosh.
make it harder for predominantly multicultural counties in certain states like Georgia and other places to vote and vote early and vote with more access. Taking away voting areas,
Yes.
getting rid of early voting, and asking for 10 IDs. That type of thing is a deliberate way to slow down multicultural counties from voting and voting access.
Yeah, it's like, well, this is more secure to have only the one site. Well, that means people without cars have to find a way to get there. And people who work long hours have to take unpaid time off from their works. And people who have childcare responsibilities have to figure out what to do with their kids as they try to take the bus to the next town over to try to find a place to
And
vote.
then the long wait.
And then the long
Who's
wait.
going to wait 8 hours with kids,
exactly.
or have to go to the bathroom, and if you leave the line to go, we know that disproportionately affects communities of color.
Yeah, and now you're not allowed to give people a drink of water. Was that
Oh,
North Carolina or
yeah.
something?
There's a couple states that have that, where you're not allowed to give water.
Just absurd.
It's
Just
cruel.
absurd. It's
Just
like
a cruel thing.
a literal part. This is I'm thinking of it because it's in one of the scripture passages that we read for today. That like, if you see someone who's thirsty and you don't give them a drink of water, then you have done that to God.
Right.
And
we're arresting you for even giving water.
Right. So it's like literally making one of our spiritual practices, one of our religious practices, which is giving water to people who are thirsty. It says so in the Bible.
Right.
It's literally making that illegal.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think so much about how it's easy for people with a lot of privilege to feel like it's an option to get involved in some of these issues. It's like an option among many other options, like a hobby, like, oh, I could take up knitting or I could take up protesting. I think if it doesn't affect your actual life, which for me in a lot of cases, like, I'm pretty privileged, I have access to a lot of stuff. And what I liked about the Isaiah passage that we had for today is it's the reminder that, like, nobody is off the hook here.
Yeah.
Don't let the foreigner say, don't let the eunuch say, don't let anybody say, oh, this isn't my job, this isn't my fight, this isn't my, this isn't my bag. Like, I maybe will show up sometimes, but I'm pretty tired, so I'm going to take a break. And like you said, you don't get to take a break from being Black. Like,
Yeah.
You don't get to take a break from being in a community that has to fight harder. And because of that, as a church, all of us should I think of ourselves in the same way. Like,
Yeah.
It's not an option.
It's not an option to, I'm tired, I want to take a day off, or I just want to go to the beach. It definitely is an option. People do that all the time. Sometimes I don't want to get out of bed, and I don't.
Yeah.
But that's a temporary thing.
Yeah.
I still need to get up. I need to work. I need to support myself. I need to support, being encouraging to my friends and my clients.
Yeah.
I think all of us, as a human being, as a person that has connections in life, family, friends, community, mentoring, the elders, the children, all the in between, wants everyone to thrive. I don't think there's anyone that tries to deliberately go out and say, I don't want you to thrive.
Yeah.
And so in thriving, it's a way to help everyone move forward. So in reaching out to our friends or family or the less fortunate, or the volunteering time, whether it's literacy or holding babies at the hospital, or even the kittens and the puppies at the SPCA, or, driving people grocery shopping, or driving people to get their COVID shots.
Yeah.
All of those things to help around the house, the housekeeping.
Yeah.
It's to help people thrive.
Yeah, and there's taking care of yourself so that you can continue to serve. And I don't mean to say, like, everybody should totally wear themselves out and never forgive yourself for an instant of rest, but to keep picking it back up, to keep picking it back up, to keep showing back up, even as the momentum after George Floyd's death, there was a lot of momentum around protests, and then it kind of eased off in terms of participation from people that look like me. And I think that's like our work, our spiritual work, is even when there's not a big groundswell of momentum in society, to keep showing up, to figure out where to keep showing up. And we were talking a little bit about this as we were preparing. People with privilege need to figure out how to take direction. And sometimes it's hard work for us because we're used to being in charge of things.
Or not being questioned.
Exactly. We're used to being able to, we're used to expecting to fully understand. We're used to having access to a lot of information and resources and choices. And we're not used to people, especially people that we even unconsciously might perceive as less powerful than us. We're not used to taking direction. And that too is a spiritual practice. It's a spiritual work. And I hope that we all in our church, particularly those of us with a lot of privilege, are becoming better followers. Better able to take feedback, better able to take direction, better able to be led by people who actually have lived experience of the things that we're trying to work on.
I definitely see that happening. I know in long-range planning, we have a diverse group of people, and we're talking about ways, not only how we're going to come back and be community after COVID or during this transition, but ways that we can be more socially active out in the community. And instead of leading as First Congregational Church, we're out there, we're a spiritual community, we want people to see, we're like, let's partner with
Yeah.
Black Lives Matter or other groups that are more racially diverse
Yeah.
and be support to them and let them lead, and we will be the supportive role.
Yeah.
We're looking at ways that we can join in so that, yes, we can carry our banner that we're First Congregational Church Berkeley, and we're participating, but not necessarily having to be the leaders.
Yeah, yeah, which is actually spiritual work.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it is work towards, I think, who we're being called to become. A community of people who are growing,
Mm-hmm.
who are individually growing, and who are growing as a community in our capacity to listen, our capacity to pay attention, our capacity to receive critical feedback towards ourselves. If we partner with an organization and that organization says, hey, when your people came and volunteered, they were not great, instead of us being defensive as a group and saying, well, come on, we showed up, didn't we? Like, you take what we give you.
Yeah, you should be happy that we were there.
Exactly, which is the implication of all of that kind of like defensiveness.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, you should be grateful for whatever I'm giving you,
right,
and not ask for more. And instead of doing that, which is very tempting, and which many of us have lots of practice with, instead of doing that, we can say, I'm so glad you told us.
Yeah.
Because we want to be better than that. We want to be different than that.
And there's always areas to learn.
Yeah.
You know, the truly educated never stop learning.
That's right.
You know, there's ways that we can be gentler, kinder, giving in ways that wouldn't be offensive or push somebody away.
Yeah.
And that's all learning.
Yeah. Yeah, it truly is. It's all learning. It's all good for us.
Mm-hmm.
The moment that we decide we're done,
Mm-hmm.
it's the end of our spiritual life, I think.
Spiritual growth.
Yeah. Yeah. The moment we decide that's enough, this is good enough. The end of our spiritual growth. The end of our journey towards who God is calling us to become. I think we're always called to keep learning. There's always room to grow. And there's always room for us to become a little bit closer to that vision that God has given us. And God, you know, in Isaiah, in the passage that we had for today, there's this promise that God says, I will take you to my holy mountain. Like, this is not a pipe dream. This is not impossible, even though the things that we're able to do feel really small.
Mm-hmm.
So small as to be almost meaningless. The promise is right there. It's not meaningless. It's
to that one person or
right.
10 people or that small community group that was marching.
Exactly.
Or that small community group that needs that support.
Yeah.
To help put a face of humanity, especially around police brutality.
Yeah.
To offer that bit of humanity to the person that's suffering.
Yeah.
You know, that's afraid a police officer is pulling up behind me. I've always okay, there's the CHP. Are they turning around? Are they driving by?
Yeah.
They're pulling up behind me. Are the lights coming on? I am ready.
Yeah.
You know, tensing, and then they pull over or go to the left or the right. That's a real concern for a lot of people, but I think definitely Black and brown people.
For sure.
Okay, how late is this going to mess up my day?
Yeah.
That fear is out there. Being watched in stores, going into just normal grocery shopping or a clothing store or whatever, being considered suspect. Just because I'm going in there doing my normal business.
It's dehumanizing.
It totally is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's exhausting.
Yeah.
To constantly, I have the right to be here and
to
there
live in the world
and everywhere.
and
I need services and I need products.
Yeah.
And I get to drive and I get to walk and I get to run.
Yeah.
And play and have a good time without the threat of who are you and you don't belong and possibly violence.
Yeah, so the work is big. Mm-hmm. The problem is big.
Mm-hmm.
Problems are big. The things we can do one by one a lot of times feel small, but they matter.
They do matter, one by one. Every day they matter to that one person or two people that you're interacting with. A kind word, standing by in support, even a smile, a wave. I know people who might have like similar cars kind of give each other a nod as they're driving by. You know, Black people do the same thing. We're walking by and like, we're doing the grind. I'm here, I hear you, you know, or do you hear whatever's going on over there? It's like, okay, we just got to keep moving.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
Another day to survive, another day to come home, another day to be proud of showing up in the world.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, bless the continuing work and the growth.
Definitely. And the intention to be present, to pay attention, to hear if there is a person thinking, I think I'm being discriminated against. I think, you know, that application for that home or that car loan or whatever, I think that person was racist. To actually hear that and take it in, not just, no, you must have misunderstood. But that couldn't possibly be what you heard. Allowing us the vulnerability to say those things and be heard is uplifting.
Yeah, well, and I think I want all the white folks in our congregation to hear this, that it is possible to receive those things as a gift. And you can learn to hear it that way. And I think that's, for me, part of what it means that God says, I'll bring you to this holy mountain. Like, you will get some joy out of this. The joy is in learning to hear that as a gift. Because if somebody comes and says, hey, you're saying this thing, and I don't think it's right, and I think you should fix it, you can learn to hear that as what it really is, which is that person saying to you, hey, I trust that you would want to know this.
Mm-hmm.
I trust that you would not, I think of you as someone who would not want to be saying something racist, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think of you as someone who could do better than this. I want to stay in relationship with you, and so I'm going to tell you this thing you're doing that's causing harm.
Mm-hmm.
That is a gift. It's a generous gift for someone to do that. Every time I receive some kind of feedback like that, I recognize it that way. Because I know you don't have to, and you could go around all day long saying to people, okay, come on, that's racist, that's racist, that's racist. Like, it would be even more exhausting. And so you have to pick and choose. When is it going to make sense to fight? When is it going to make sense to just let it go? It's not worth my time. When somebody decides that I'm worth their time to tell me something like that, it's a gift. Mm-hmm. It's a gift. And likewise for our whole church. When somebody decides we are worth being part of, even when we've caused some kind of harm, even when we've done something that's not helpful, when somebody says, hey, I like you so much that I want you to get better on this so that I can stay and thrive here, it's a gift.
That definitely is it. So I can stay and thrive here.
Yeah.
Because if not, that begins the separation.
Yeah.
Right? And then the pulling away, and then, all right, I guess I got to go someplace else because I don't feel safe here.
Yeah.
I don't feel heard here. So gifts can be lovely, sometimes hard.
Yes.
But overall, it's about, again, community building and thriving.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what we want, and that's what God is promising is possible. And hopefully we're becoming that direction.
Yes. I think we are.
I do too.
Yay.
I do too. You know, it's slow and hard, but that's how it's gonna go.
One day at a time.
That's right.
Right?
That's right. One day, one choice, one action. We'll just keep on going.
All right.
Well, thanks.
Thank you for inviting me. Yay.
Yay.